Hey guys, hope you're having a wonderful day out there today. Jamie Hardwick's going to be the guest host on another episode, back by popular demand. The podcast is brought to you by HardwickLIFE, which is the website. It's the home of the Lose Like a Lineman program, and if you haven't heard of the program and you're interested in losing weight, get your butt onto the website at hardwick.life. That's hardwick.com, but it's hardwick.life. And if you don't know already, I designed that program 6 years ago for my personal weight loss to get me down from 295. I went all the way down to 202. I lost 85 pounds in under 5 months, and it's given tons of success to a lot of people. And and you'll hear about this on the podcast with Jamie, we have just redesigned the program, Lose Like a Lineman 2.0, specifically with the female in mind and the female's preferences and what is manageable. So that was with Jamie. She helped me out with that. Hey guys, and welcome into the HardwickLIFE Podcast. Right, joining us today is my former teammate and one of the most electrifying players to ever take an NFL field. It's Shawne Merriman. Shawne played 8 years in the league, 6 with the Chargers, 2 with the Bills. He was a one-time All-Pro, a 3-time Pro Bowler, the Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2005, the NFL sack leader in 2006, a fitness enthusiast, an entrepreneur with business ventures that cover a wide swath of interest. His desire for success and achievement is, along with his work ethic, unmatched. I really marvel at the effort he gives on a daily basis. He's the co-founder of an MMA League, Lights Out XF, owner of Lights Out clothing brand, and host of the Lights Out with Shawne Merriman Podcast. You can follow him and everything that he's got going on at Shawne Merriman. That's SHAWNE Merriman, MERRIMAN. He's a great follow, tons of fun. He's got a great social media presence. You guys are going to love this. Yes.
What's up, my man?
What's up, Shawne? How are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I am so well. You just sitting in the studio?
Yeah, just knocking out some stuff, man. Zooms, I mean, you name it. I'm just going through my day.
Just another 12-hour day for you.
You know it, man. I love it. I wouldn't give it up for nothing.
I know it's funny because it's not work to you. It's just what you do.
Yeah, like people used to say all the time, right? If you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. So when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, people, they're BS, right? They're full of it. But the truth is that when it's fun for you, it's really not work, right? Like some people, you go to some jobs that you just don't want to be at. It's miserable as hell for you. You got to go and deal with people you don't want to deal with. And I find it through my day that I don't deal with anything that I don't want to deal with. So like that's kind of been the cool situation with me.
It's not a job, right? Like there's jobs, there's careers, and this is a career that you have. But it's more than that. It's even more than a career. It's just you, which is super cool.
One thing, Nick, man, I've always, I wouldn't say really pride myself on. It's something that I kind of live by, right? Because the harder you work, the more stuff you put in, you cross paths when you hit the whole thing, you get lucky and everything happens. Yeah. But people, a lot of times people they're not working when the opportunity's not there. And they only start working when you have opportunity. You get what I'm saying? So if you're working the whole time, like people get crazy opportunities all the time, but they're not ready for them because they wasn't doing what they're supposed to do when the time was out. So me, I just work. I build. And so when the opportunity comes across, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. We're done deal. So that's where it's at, man. It's just, it got its ups and downs, right? Because you are like building and, it's a lot of time. And, like this morning I woke up and I'm like, damn, man, I'm a little beat up. I was in San Diego yesterday, just literally for like 36 hours. And I came back. I just moved up here to Vegas. So yeah, man.
I didn't know you were in Vegas.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How is it?
Dude, honestly, San Diego, I'll argue with anybody. It's the greatest place to live in the country, right? I've lived in Miami, I lived in New York, obviously lived in Maryland where I'm from, lived in LA. San Diego is the best place to me, in my opinion, to live in the country. But since I'm never in one spot, it's like, okay, well, what's the next best place? It's inexpensive. I can get in and out of town when I want to. I can go where I need to go. So here I was just automatically, obviously because of the fight game, right? Because the MMA League. So I found myself spending a lot of time here, and I said, man, I can't, flying in, driving up. Let me just go ahead and make that a home base, and then travel everywhere else.
Because they got a massive airport, real estate's cheaper, taxes are way lower. Because I know you were in LA, you had the house in San Diego. You still have the house in San Diego?
No, I got rid of it, but I do got a ton of land in Poway, so that's ultimately where I'm going to end up at, man. I got this special place for Poway. I can't really I can't tell you why. I mean, I know I lived in Scripps Ranch when I played there, but this special place about Poway, man, I just always envision myself when it's time for me to slow down and be parked somewhere it's going to be there.
I hear you. I moved back to Indiana. We've been here since the start of quarantine. We didn't move because of quarantine, moved to get closer to family. And we actually sold our house like 5 days before the kids got taken out of school and everything shut down and all that. So it was just kind of the right time. And we got super lucky selling the house at the right time and everything. It all worked out well. And then like when we're recording this, it's April 20th, or yesterday it was April 20th. And it was snowing. I woke up this morning with 3 inches of snow on the ground. I was like, what the hell am I doing here? This is crazy.
I seen that because I got some guys, I got some people that live in the Midwest, and they were sending me pictures and video. And I was like, damn, man. And I'm from the East Coast, so I grew up in the snow.
Yeah.
But when you move to the West Coast, dude, you get spoiled. You flat out just get spoiled. So now you go back, you're like, what the hell is this white stuff that's on the ground, right? You're not used to seeing it anymore.
And it was cool for a little bit. Like when I was shoveling snow, when it was probably like 2 weeks over the winter, and I was like, this is cool. It's wintertime. This is what we're supposed to do. We're out shoveling. It's a great workout. I enjoy it. It's like, I don't even have to go in the basement and get a lift in or anything. It's like, I got mine. But it's April. And I looked at my wife last night and I was like, there's no way in hell I'm shoveling the driveway. Like it's gonna either melt or it's gonna stay there. But it's April. There's no way. Check me out of that.
No, I'm just gonna keep my ass in the house. That's about it. So
has Vegas been good to you?
It's been good, man, because obviously it's great for fight. I think the UFC has kind of paved the way for MMA up here. Boxing's always been, big because of Floyd, and this is his home. But MMA is really growing up here. I train at Randy Couture's gym out here, Extreme Couture, when I'm here. Yeah. So I train there, 3-4 days, 3 days a week at least, and probably spar at least one or 2 days a week there when I get back going. So, for me, man, it's like I have a pocket where I have a regimen. Like I'm super regimented. 6:30 I'm up. I'm this place at 7:30. I'm on the phone by 8:30. I'm in the gym by 9 or 10. So for me, it's like a checklist throughout the day.
How's your body doing? Because I know I see you banging. Like you still get after it. You're still flipping tires. You're still pushing sleds. You still look great. Obviously, it's holding up well. Does it feel all right? You feel good?
So I would say the major problem that I have in my body is like my shoulders, right? Like I have some shoulder pain and stuff, and I don't know if that's obviously from football, because once you go into the knife one time, you're never the same again. Like you're not, it don't go back to like how it was, or it doesn't get better. It just, you're worse. So I had surgery to both my shoulders while I played, labrum, and I had a slap dislocation on this side. So, and I got that when I was in Buffalo. But other than that, man, I still squat. I put 3 plates on it a day. I squat in a day. I still bench, pretty decently heavy. But when you're doing MMA, you don't need to slam around the weights anymore. Like I'm over the big weight stage, right?
Yes.
I remember that.
It's more functional.
It's more functional training. It's band work. It's making sure pull-ups and burpees and walking lunges. It's all moving stuff for me. And then it also helps me out doing MMA. Right. And the MMA is where I get the cardio and I don't have to bang up my knees and trying to run 2 miles, because you can forget it. I mean, running long distance now, just forget about it.
It wrecks you. I can't hardly run. I would like to check off on a list, a marathon. I'd like to check off an Iron. I can't do it. Like I get up to 10 miles and I'm back on anti-inflammatories and it's just not working for me. And it's not worth it.
house would be a luxury for me if I got that. I mean, if I get up to like 2 of like just to sit, like it wouldn't be so much my knees, but your knees combination, your lower back. I mean, before you know it, it's
your hips.
The hips. Now you can't work out like you want to for a couple of days, and I'm like, I forget that. So, on the mat in MMA, I get way more cardio than I need, like upper body and lower. So I get everything in that 45 minutes of rolling or whatever we're doing that day.
And you get some of that aggression out. You get that physical content because we're physical beasts, right? Like we speak a physical language. It's just, it's got to feel good in a way.
It does. I mean, and I always say this because, I don't know if you went through it, but I definitely did. So you got that space, that year or two, right? That it's not there anymore. You're not playing.
That's right.
And so whether it's, depressed, whether it's anxiety, whatever that thing you get from not playing anymore. And I think I went through all of those, even though I had plenty of stuff to do. I was working, I had lights out clothing, and I was in stores. I mean, I was constantly working, but it just wasn't the same for me. So I knew I was missing something. But when I got to doing more boxing, when I got to doing more sparring and rolling around in jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, it kind of woke that thing back up in me again. And we're so used to being in the locker room. And as you know, Nick, man, you talk to anybody that stopped playing, the first thing I tell you is, hey, I miss the locker room. You miss the guys. You don't miss the politics. You don't miss the BS. The money's and all that is good. But the first thing that when you normally talk to guys, I miss the locker room. So when I go into these gyms, to these MMA gyms, and and there's a lot of shit talking. It's like how we were in the locker. It's just nonstop. You can't come in there with some tore up jeans on. You can't come in there smelling funky. They'll talk about your mom. And the next thing is, hey, put the gloves on. And now we get to going again. So for me, it's kind of been the anchor in my balance to do that, because it takes that competitive edge where I'm not walking around anymore like on like stilts, and I just want to do something. I feel edgy, and it's almost in a sense of meditation for me for a long time.
Yeah, it gets it out of you. Tell me about, Shawne, because you started to touch on it a little bit, the transition out of the game, because I know for me, I had a moment that I can point back to that I was like, well, that was dangerous. That was like that. I was on the edge there. I told my wife, and people that listen to the podcast, they'll know, they've heard it before. It's like, I came in, I quit my radio gig. I said, I'm not doing this. This isn't working for me anymore. You can take everything, leave me $1 million. I'm going to Nicaragua. And that was like everything but saying, hey, I'm going to go kill myself. I'm going to Nicaragua, because I couldn't come to that. I just couldn't say that. And she looked at me, she's like, dude, we're going to get you some help. Calm your butt down. And I was like, oh, okay. It was like, she smacked me upside the face. She didn't actually, but figuratively smacked me upside the face. Is like, dude, I need you. These boys need you. You're not going anywhere. What was it like for you? Was it rough?
It was rough, but I think the hardest part for me personally, it was the in-between stage where I retired, but I wasn't sure, if I wanted to go back. I still felt like I could. And so I couldn't really start my second life yet, right? Because you can't go and start building all this stuff and work out and wait for a team to call. Because when I got let go from Buffalo 2 weeks before training camp, just right before my last year, I was just out of it. I knew I was gonna with the Chargers. I knew at some point that was coming. I was just banged up. I was hurt constantly. I knew that was coming. I just didn't know when. Buffalo was in a sense where I signed a 2-year contract, and then I was kind of working out, waiting for somebody to call. And so I never, in my, at that point, with 24, 25 years of living, I never had to sit around and wait for anybody. I was like the first one taken. We played the pickup basketball. It was him. We won him. Football and backyard football. I was always the first one taken. So I was always that. And then for that short period of time, I wouldn't get any calls. I said, damn, is this life? Is this real? That I'm sitting around, Pro Bowls and you reach a certain level of stardom and notoriety.
Sack leader, defensive MVP as a rookie. I mean, you had a lot going. You had a lot.
And then you're sitting around waiting for a call. So when I finally went back to Buffalo, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th week, and I actually had to. I was running down a scout team. People don't even know. Like I did everything. When I came back, I didn't complain. I didn't do anything. I ran down a scout team, kickoff, wherever they need me at, second string, third. I did everything I could, and then I ended up starting and coming back and coming to myself. But then I wanted to go out on my own terms, right? So I went up to them And I just had a great game. I had 7, 8 tackles and 3, TFLs, and I had a really, really good game. I went up to them and said, look, I'm done. That's it. And I felt more free then than anything else. That was my period where I had, and I felt like, okay, I went out the way I went out. I didn't have to sit around anymore for anybody to call. Yeah. I didn't have to go into the locker room and wonder if this was the day they're going to let me go. And then at that point, I started doing TV stuff. I think I went over to NFL Network first. And then I was doing the Lights Out clothing line. I was working with the M-Life properties, the selling clothes. So I that gave me the sense of like replacing what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right. That was my tough part where I was sitting around, man. I was like, I'll go out to the club and like, I'll get drunk. I'm hungover just so I didn't have to deal with not having a job or waiting for people I was literally like, I just couldn't take it.
You didn't have to process all that.
I didn't have to do it anymore. I was worried more about having a hangover than I was, somebody calling me. I was like, damn, hell with this. I'm like, I'm gonna go out and have fun and just not think about it. So that was the point for me where I had that moment.
Do you think you told them in Buffalo, I'm done after the good game? I'm on a high note here as a self-protective mechanism. So you couldn't get hurt.
100%. And more importantly, not even getting hurt is just that, because I think we said the eye in the sky don't lie, right? And so, I went through that period where I was hurt and I was hobbling around on one Achilles, the AFC Championship game. I got 2 major ligaments torn. We all kind of walked in to that game banged up. But
it's funny. I forget because there's so many, right? There were so many injuries. Gates had his, Phillip had his, I had the Liz Frank, you had LT had his. I mean, it was Jamal, I think, had to have surgery after that game. We were a mess.
Yeah, we were all beat up. And so for me to go out that way where somebody can turn on the field, and I still, like years later, talk to the coaches after, and they were always in a general manager, and they would look at that game and say, man, you could have came back and played. I said, I know. So that was kind of my way of being done with it on my terms.
And you got to control the situation, right? And that was a huge turning point going back to that season. And I think it was the Tennessee game, right? It was Mawai and Stewart or Mawai and Roos, and I forget what that was, but that was the game that really, I mean, you tore your PCL. Did you tear your MCL in that? What?
Yeah, I tore my PCL and LCL. And so, it's funny because I've been, because where I grew up at, I was homeless several times, and we grew up with jack shit, right? We grew up with nothing. And so I was always taught to not complain about the circumstances, no matter what. You're going to be dealt with some bad cards in life, but not to complain. I never complained in my life about anything. And so the real story and what happened in kind of the Tennessee game is I ended up running into Vince Young's. He was doing a rollout, right?
Yeah. And
I ran into him. Now, the tackle was still blocking me. It wasn't like it was no tackle and I just ran upfield and hit him. He was still blocking me. So I'm thinking I got a sack, right? So I finally pulled up when I see he didn't have the ball, and he ended up cracking or fracturing his ribs. Well, Jeff Fisher came over and I saw him, and mind you, I know Vince Young. I think we had the same PR at the time, and we've met several times and hung out. And so I'm kneeling down because I'm feeling it. I'm on top of him, like, hey, dude, oh my God, you cool? You good? You cool? And he was just in excruciating pain or whatever. I'm like, damn. So I came back, walked to the huddle. Jeff Fisher walked out. And he's also kneeling over Vince Young, but he's looking at me dead in the eyes like I did it on purpose. And I'm like, this is my boy. What are you talking about? Why would I do that? It doesn't make any sense, right? So the very next play, they ran in motion. They took the tight end in motion and blasted me, blindsided me on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. Little toss crack.
And they actually got a penalty on that play. So, and I got up, went back or whatever, but it was the very next play where Stewart and Kevin Mawai, 15, 20 yards away, had jumped on my knee, right? Yeah. Now, initially, I don't believe that they were trying to hurt me, but they were definitely trying to do something to me in retaliation, thinking I did something to Vince.
Yeah.
But in that play, I tore my knee. I heard it tear. I heard it pop. It wasn't, as soon as it happened, I didn't think something was wrong. I knew something was wrong.
You knew, yeah.
And I was always taught since a kid never to lay on the field, right? Because I didn't want to be the one, I just, we see these young guys now, they land on the field and they got shoulder issues. I'm like, dude, what's wrong with your legs?
Get up.
Like, it's your shoulder. What are you laying on the field for? And so I never wanted anyone to see me laying on the field. So I kind of walked back to the sideline and my knee is just all over. It's moving back and forth and just all over the place. And so I went back in and tried to put my foot in the ground. It just wouldn't happen. After the game, the reporters came to me and I still really didn't say much. So fast forward, right? It ultimately changed the course of everything that I was doing. I was on pace. Even that year I did finish, I think, with 12 or 13 sacks. I probably, if I was healthy, maybe finish with 17 again because I was just on that kind of a run.
Oh, yeah.
And fast forward. So I got this thing against Kevin Mawai. I said, if I see this dude, I'm going to crack him right in the mouth, right? Wherever I see him for years. I said, if I see him, it's on site right away. I'm punching this dude in the face. And a couple of years ago in Canton at the Hall of Fame, I was with Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis invited me out. I actually was in Ray Lewis's room when they knocked on the door for his Hall of Fame. I was with him and his family. And I ran into Kevin Mawai in downstairs by the elevator. So I'm all squared up. I don't care what.
You're ready to go.
Right? I'm ready to go. I don't care if I get arrested. I don't give a shit about nothing, right? Because that was the only way I can redeem. I can't play against him anymore. So the only way I can do him is kind of kick this dude's ass. And he walked up, and as he walking up to me, he had tears in his eyes and said, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And I mean, he was, kind of talking to me and trying to get it out there. And at that moment, I kind of dropped my guard because I was all squared up to go. I was going to jump on this dude in the lobby downstairs. And by the time he walked up to me, he had tears in his eyes. And he said that wasn't his intentions. And he apologized and asked me, did I accept his apology? And he put his hand up and I shook his hand. And I said, I accept. I appreciate it. Thanks for apologizing. And that was it.
Wow. And you've genuinely accepted. Like, wow. Yeah. Because I mean, you want to talk about changing things, right? Like you were one of the ultimate Lions that ever came in the NFL. I mean, on path to be right there, getting your door knocked on for the Hall of Fame, right? And to be able to let that go, it's massive, right? It's massive.
And the only time I do even feel a little bit about something, right? So, for example, I went to when I told you I went to NFL Network when I retired and I was there. So, you up there with Deion Sanders and Marshall Faulk, Michael Irvin, and everybody up there got either Super Bowl rings or they got a jacket, right? Terrell Davis, he just got his, a jacket. So,
LT.
And LT. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, man, I'm never going to get a jacket. And for me, when you come into it and kind of selfishly, you want to be considered the best at what you do. And, having that jacket makes you the best of what you did. Right. So that's the only time that I would feel like uneasy about the situation. But even that, so now, man, it's like, I get the respect as a guy who, was supposed to be in the Hall of Fame and other people I played with or played against. So that part of it means a lot. But yeah, you still had those times, man. It was like, damn, if I had 2 more healthy seasons, I probably would have had an opportunity.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, coming from a former teammate, a guy who got to strap on the helmet and the shoes with you, that watching you on the field, you're in that class, right? There's very few people who came and changed the dynamic of, we were trending upwards, but when you came in, it changed the dynamic of the locker room. And I said it in the introduction. I'm like, he's one of the most electrifying players to ever step on any NFL field. And you were. And everything about it, right? Like when we would be rolling or we'd be closing out a game, and very rarely can you go, well, who's going to make the play? Well, we knew who was going to make the play. We knew it was going to be you jumping on somebody's back. And like, actually, that's why I say you're lying, because you just would jump on Peyton Manning's back and rake him down like a freaking lion. And it was unbelievable. And then the crowd would, I thought this was one of the coolest things. It's like I always said, I would either want to be a rock star or do the job that I did, but the job that I did wasn't as cool as the job that you did, because you had the power of a rock star when you would hit the dance, and the place would just go. And I got goosebumps as I'm talking through it. It's like Qualcomm would just go bananas. Like, it was unbelievable. The roof, if there was a roof on there, it wouldn't have existed anymore. It would have been up in Mars. Like, what did that feel like when you set that off?
So my freshman year in high school, I went to Frederick Douglass in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. My high school coaches, they told me that if you want to see a real linebacker play, we're going to take you to see one. And so they took me to a Ravens game. And this was in 2000. And we didn't have much. We didn't have anything. We didn't have any money. So we sat up literally three seats down from the light bulbs, right? I could have reached behind and like grabbed the light bulbs and changed the damn light bulbs. That's how high we were. So this was in 2000. Ravens was super hot. Remember that team they had? And
oh yeah,
Peter Bullware. And I mean, they were just loaded with everybody, right? And they were doing introductions. And so Peter Bullware came out, and all these other great stars too on that team. That was, they had stars galore, but I ain't never seen nothing like this. They called Ray Lewis last. And the music stopped, the smoke came out, fireworks, everything got quiet. And all I heard is, "It's getting hot in here." Nelly came on and Ray came out. And so I used to watch the replays of the concerts with Michael Jackson and stuff, right? Where these people like faint, you see them sweating, they just pass out, right? In the audience. And I always say, man, what the hell is wrong with these people? He's a person. Like, it's only Michael Jackson. I get it. He's Michael Jackson, but he's a person. And so I always thought it was ridiculous, right? And when they did that and they played the music and it's getting hot. And when I felt like I was going to pass out because I was screaming. I literally felt. So that moment I started thinking about those people at the Michael Jackson concert. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make people, feel this way about me one day. And I told my high school coaches that I looked to them after the smoke cleared and they started to get into the game announcements. I told my high school coaches, I said, man, I'm going to get somebody to do that with me one day. And that's kind of what, kind of triggered everything. And then Ray obviously became like older brother and a mentor of mine.
When'd you guys meet? How'd you guys become so close?
Well, his brother, Keon Lattimore, played running back at the University of Maryland. And so we got really close then. And so I was around, man. I was around like that life, right? I mean, I've seen so much as a kid and practically a kid, and to have that knowledge from somebody who's been doing it and at that level, right? So it's not like, some guy that was kind of trying to make the team and, you got an NFL. No, you had the best of the best. And I was talking to Ray, and even in NFL, me and Ray would talk almost every night before the game. After we finished our team meetings and I got back to my hotel, to the room, before, Dick Lewis came and knocked on everybody's door, I was on the phone with Ray. And sometimes all we would do was just talk about what we planned on doing. And Ray would get me so high because, Ray can motivate a flea, right? Yeah. I mean, he can make anybody go. And he would say, let me tell you something here, Shay. He would call me Shay. Shay, let me tell you something. I'm going to run through somebody's soul tomorrow. And I'll get to going. A couple of times I had to hang up on him because he'll get me so hyped up and I can't sleep, right?
That's like, I got to go to bed, Ray.
So he said, what you plan to say, man? I'm going to get a sack or two tomorrow. We probably blow these boys out by, a couple of touchdowns. I'm going to get off tomorrow. I'm going to do my thing. And then he said, oh yeah, I'm sideline to sideline, Shay. When I see him, I ain't tackling. I'm running through their soul. And I say, all right, Ray, I think I got to get off the phone now, right? Because you get so hyped up. But it literally was that. And then, so, I'll go back after the game. I'll see what he did, see how the team did, see how he played. He'll be watching, be like, man, he's sitting there with his kids and they watch me do the lights out dance on ESPN or Sports Center, wherever they showed it. And so that's how, our relationship went practically my whole career.
So the little Ray Lewis story, he varied in weight like over the years. Like one year he'd show up and be about 235, and then one year he would be about 260 and just thick. And it just kind of depended on what they were going to ask him to do. And if they were going to ask him to hunker down and take him out on third down, he was going to get big. I ran into him once when he was about 260, and it was the heaviest chest that I'd ever put my face mask in. And I blocked him, but it was like, daggone, that'll shorten your neck up. He was just so thick and so dense and knew how to hit. Man, he was. And I tell you, that Ravens linebacker core, I mean, you could even throw in the front too. That was an intimidating bunch now. They were stacked. Like, they were just physically and just the looks they had on their faces.
And their mentality, man. I mean, they had and I'm sure you probably talk about including Suggs, but then one year I think they had they had a few other guys too. When they were they were stacked.
Yeah, even some of their backup linebackers were just like long-armed and jacked and nasty. I mean, they played nasty. Like, you wouldn't remember their names necessarily, but they were kind of like us, where people wouldn't maybe remember Coop because of everybody else's names, but when you played him, you knew him.
You knew exactly who he was. And that's another thing too. And Ray kind of put this into me early on, because he said, look, anybody can go out and have a great game, but can you make everybody else have a great game? And I remember him telling me this my sophomore year when I was at University of Maryland. And so, he kind of told me the importance of lighting the fire out of everybody else. And I don't know if you remember DeQuincy Scott. DeQuincy Scott, right?
Yeah.
So he was the guy. He broke down the team, right? He broke down the team before every game. He was the guy. I mean, DeQuincy was great. But Ray asked me, like, in the training case, he said, who's breaking down the team? He said, is it you? I said, no, man, I'm not even starting or anything, because Ben Lieber. He said, nobody break down the team but you. That's what you do. I say, all right, so I'm like, I'm still like the big brother. Like, yeah, whatever you say, yeah.
Got you, Ray.
Yeah, got you. And then DeQuincy had, I think he had hurt his quad. He had a quad or thigh bruise or something around that time. And then that's when I kind of stepped up and did that and carried that role throughout, man. So he played, a really intricate part in like everything that I really did, because especially when it came to football wise, he had so much knowledge, man. It was just like an endless amount of just knowledge.
It's funny, because I was going to ask you, I was like, what gave you the gall as a rookie coming in to own that huddle, right? Like, you see the dudes that are around. Steve Foley's there, Ben Lieber's there, Jamal's there, Quentin's there, Terrence. It's like, I mean, there's some dudes now, and you come in as a rookie, 20-something years old, spring chicken, and it's like, this is my team.
Yeah, I just turned 21 in May. We got drafted in April, and I just turned 21 in May. It was less of an age thing or year thing. It's more of a mentality thing, right? Mm-hmm. And when you look back on it, and I laugh now, because we had a great locker room across the board. And then you really don't understand or it don't kick in how many stars, right? I mean, it's just like bona fide superstars that we had in one locker room until you get away from the game, right? Because when you're in it, everybody's brothers, we're family, we're teammates, and you're seeing each other every day. But I do, man. I sit back, sometimes like, damn, I played there with Antonio Gates, Phillip Rivers, LT, right? Low Neal. You kidding me? These are, guys who will all have jackets one day and all be known for the next 50 years.
On your side, Steve Foley, Randall Godfrey, Donnie Edwards. I mean, crazy. Some guys that we missed, Luis Castillo, Igor. Think about that defense, though. Think about that our defense, especially when we were young, you guys were the deal now.
We just had even cool, man, and how he stepped in there when Randall went down, Randall was gone. And this is a guy that was, a free agent. He didn't get drafted.
Out of Maine, right?
Who the hell?
They don't even play ball in Maine.
Right. Right. And I still tell people, I said, Stephen Cooper's probably the smartest defensive player I've ever played with. He knew everything. But I think for me, it was just more of a mentality on where I envisioned myself and being in that starting role and whatever. And somebody asked me the other day, because I brought up Ben Lieber's name, but I learned a lot because I sit back and I watch, man. I know I talk trash and everybody, oh, this dude cocky, but I watch a lot of people and I watch Ben. And one thing I learned from Lieber, that he was so disciplined. He was so disciplined and so smart that if he was supposed to be in the gap, he was going to be there. And that was the gift and the curse and why they even drafted me, right? Because he's going to do his job, but he wasn't going to, hey, look, if you got to go under this block to go get that sack, you got, so it was a gift and a curse. So I did learn a lot of things like, okay, on this play, you got to be here because that mic has to roll over and protect your outside, right? So I knew kind of where to go and do certain things, but I learned a lot from Ben Lieber sitting back there.
Yeah, learning when it's your time to make a play, when it's somebody else's time to make a play. And then, hey, like I said, when I'm sitting on the sidelines, we need a play. You also know that. You know that it's your time. Marty passed away earlier this year. What did Marty give you? He gave me a lot, kind of reluctantly, because, I was a brash punk that headbutted guys on the field and drew flags, and I think I drew his ire a lot. But he gave me a lot of that one play at a time mentality that I still, every day, I still do that same thing. One play at a time, man. What did he give you?
For me, so when I came in, so one of the first things that happened, and I think the first time he actually had a real conversation with me outside of the draft day when he kind of sat down or whatever, and we just got our pads on that day, and I went 1-on-1 with Lo Neal, and that day I blew Lo Neal up, even though I wasn't supposed to. I ran right through Lo Neal, and I was supposed to be pass rushing, right? And I made the crowd go and whatever, and he came over and like, man, I love this, right? So I knew that he liked the play, like the attitude. I knew he loved that stuff or whatever. But this is one thing that always stuck with me, and even now to this day. So my rookie year, we're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm at linebacker, not on the line of scrimmage. They moved me back into the linebacker role because it was a weak side, and we came back, and Priest Holmes, they pitched to hit a sweep to the right side. So I'm flying and I'm haul ass into the other side. And I saw that SP had made him cut back. And I said in my head during the play, I said, if he cut back at the right time in the right place and I'm there, he's going to sleep. And I'm thinking that in my head. I was like, this dude, he's going to sleep because I'm haul assing as fast as I possibly could. And he cut back and I, boom, leveled him, knocked him out. Right. So I'm sitting there and I'm celebrating. I'm, SP celebrating. I'm celebrating. I'm jump up, down, screaming. And Priest is out, right? So I looked at him, and his eyes are kind of rolled back in his head, and he was still holding on to the football, but his hands were like twitching. And so even at that time, it never clicked to me on how scary that was, because I was just still, I was pumped up. I was screaming,
you were making a play.
I was making a play. So I got on the sidelines, and I'm still celebrating. I'm hooping and hollering. I'm going crazy. And Marty Schottenheimer grabbed me by the face mask. He said, "Shawne, great hit, but don't forget that this guy's family and his friends are watching." And so for me in that moment, it kind of told me a lot about who he was, right? He was tough as nails. He'll come down on you. He'll line you up. He's hard on you. He'll line you up in Oklahoma drills. And next day he'll come in, pat you in the back, and he'll line you up in the Oklahoma drills again. But at that moment, I calmed down. I settled down like, damn, he's right. Priest Holmes was out for almost 2 commercial breaks. He was still down. Yeah. And that was Marty, man. And he always kind of played like this, like a father figure or somebody who you knew that cared about you far greater than what you did on the football field. And then if you went even hard and you had attitude, which he loved you even more. And so that was just, what I remember most about him. And one thing that I struggle with and almost I kind of teared up during LT's his Hall of Fame speech. And I was out there for that weekend or those few days. Yeah. And this was I forgot which, I want to say 16 or 17. I forgot exactly which year it was. But Marty was there, and his wife was there, Miss Schottenheimer, and they were all there. And you go up to Marty, and he'll remember you, right? So he asked about my mom, because at one point, me and my mom had a really, really rocky relationship, and he knew about my family. And then an hour later, or even 30 minutes later, you go up to him, and he don't know, he don't remember nothing of who you were. Oh. And so when he didn't remember who I was at the time, I kind of remember walking away a little bit, and I caught myself like tearing up as I was walking away. And that shit really, for me, it hit me hard. And I didn't know how bad, because once you stop playing or you're not there, you don't know how bad his condition is or how he's doing. I know he went back to his home in North Carolina around his family and stuff. So I didn't know how bad things were. So I went up, had a conversation with him. He'll ask me about my mom and everything else. And then 30 minutes I walked up and he had no idea who I was.
Yeah, it's tragic. And he was such a really interesting dichotomy because he did have both sides where he was so fierce and he understood what it took to win at the highest level. And he understood how violent and brutal the game is and it's necessary to be. But at the same time, he was the guy that, you said the Kansas City Chiefs, he would bring up Derek Thomas all the time. And he'd always tear up talking about Derek Thomas and how special of a man he was and how special of a player he was. And every single time he would tear up, but it was not uncommon to see Marty get really vulnerable with the team. I mean, almost there were moments where you're like, Jesus, not again, Marty. But
you remember the bets we had in the team meeting room. I won a lot of money off of Marty because we had that over under a minute going, right? We had the over whether he was going to cry or not. And so I remember, everybody had 20s under there. Everybody whipped out a 20, 50, whatever you were betting. And everybody had it under the chair, kind of holding it in their hand and waiting for that minute to happen, whether he was going to tear up or that bottom lip, get to trembling. When that trembling, it's coming.
Start having the hands in the pocket and turn around and
and I think the funniest part is when he finally found out that we were betting on him. I remember one time he was like in the middle of tearing up and he said, I know your asses are betting on me crying, but I don't give a damn. Right. And so, yeah, man, I just, I miss him, just miss him a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. He taught so much. And I've always told people my favorite coaches in retrospect, the best ones that I had were the ones that were at the time, the ones that I didn't like, the ones that pushed me harder than I wanted to be pushed and made you uncomfortable and challenged you and took that rebel out of me, which I'm thankful for because it did allow me to have a long, fruitful career. So I'm super grateful for that. Tell me about, give me a little bit about, because you talked about your mom and homeless growing up. It's funny because as teammates, right? Like we have so many good memories together. But then there's so many teammates that I wish I knew more about. Like I wish I knew more about you and where you came from. And I think you could say that about most teams and most teammates is like, we know each other and I would do anything for you. And I know you do anything for me. And I could like with the guys that I played with, like all you had to do was grunt and I'm there. Like that's it. One look in the eye and it's on, we'll go. But then you wish you knew a little bit more about a teammate, right? It's like, give me a little bit. Like what was it like as a kid?
Nick, I think that for that reason, because we all talk about mental health and stuff now, right? We really talk about these things because when, I grew up in a time and in an area and in an era where, you got punched in your chest for crying, right? Or you got spanked or you got put in a corner or whatever that was for being whatever. Right. And so even when we were playing, we all making a ton of money. We all got our own thing going on. Some guys got family. Some guys will go out more and be out more like myself. Right. With me, me, Coop and SP will be in the streets. And so what we always missed is the other personal aspect of when we left the locker room, right? Or what somebody may be dealing with or have dealt with. And for me, I've always kind of hid that and never talked about it because it was weak for me. I've always had a rocky relationship with my mom for a long time. And when I didn't talk too much about growing up homeless, or whatever, because I didn't want to be like, another rags to riches story, or, another athlete that's come from the ghetto or come from the hood or whatever that is looking for to promote itself. Like I just didn't want to. So for me, I think it was a more of a image and a self-conscious, like not even really knowing that I was doing it, more of like, hey, I'm tough, don't mess with me type of deal.
Yes.
Or coming across as cocky or arrogant because I always had to fight and protect everything where I came from and grew up. And I'll give you an example. I mean, my mother couldn't pay the light and electricity bill where we lived at. So she had lit a candle, right? And the candle, I ended up leaving and going to stay with her friends because they had lights and they had food and they had electricity. So I went to go stay a couple blocks down the street. And anyway, that candle that my mom lit had burned through the TV and burned our place down, right? And so I got a call like in 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I got there and like half of our place was like charcoal on the right side. It was done. So anyway, we went to go. We lived in a motel, ate for a little bit, and we ended up going to a shelter because we couldn't even afford to live there anymore. And so I just remember in the middle of the night, and you tie your shoes and stuff on the twin beds wherever you're staying because people come and steal your stuff, right? So you tie a tight knot. And so I remember, I heard my shoes rattling, and I looked down, and somebody's trying to take my shoes. So I remember just punching them and decking this dude, and had somebody else with me. I don't know who they were, and getting my shoes. So I've always grown up with this thing like, hey, you're not taking what's mine, and I'll fight you for it. And that was the attitude, right? And I grew up in PG County, Prince George's County area, and Washington D.C. area, and this is when the crack epidemic in the 80s and 90s it started really in Washington, D.C. It was the first place it hit in the country. So I grew through that era. That's the era that I grew up in. So you find yourself being tough, protective, not showing any weakness, and it comes across and it rubs people the wrong way because they have no idea why you acting like this. And so, and it's funny, me and my sister, I got 2 younger sisters, but me and my middle sisters, we're really close because we're close in age. We just started talking about this stuff when we were almost 30 years old apiece. Yeah. We joked about it sometime and how bad we used to have it, or our lights being cut off, or us not having food, or our mom like making us go get the leftover food we threw in the trash can out because said, you're not going to waste any food around this house. So we joked about it, but we didn't really have a conversation about it until we were almost like 30 plus years old. I had at the time, I remember the day we talked about it, I had a 4-year-old son. My son's 11 now, but he was 4 at the time. I had a 4-year-old son before we talked about any kind of childhood trauma or whatever we dealt with. So I'm not surprised that all of us didn't talk about that more because, the money masked a lot of problems that you had. The competitiveness and just the physical stature that we carried around masked a lot of those issues and problems. So I'm not surprised that you didn't know more about me when it comes to that, because it was lights out. It was this image and this thing that I put up to protect that side. So I'm not surprised about that at all.
Oh man, that is awesome. And I completely understand all of that. And I also, those stories are super important, and you probably know that now. Like those stories to kids that come from where you come from, that's important to hear, that I can achieve, I can be something. I just have to go do it. And I have to be tenacious, and I have to have this work ethic. And, it's funny, like you say, masking who you are and where you come from. I come from the other end of the spectrum. Like I've got green arms, dude. This is a protective mechanism too. Like all these tattoos, that's so nobody fucks with me, right? That's because I came from suburban Indianapolis, Indiana, as just like a super middle-class white dude walking into a tenacious locker room. And it's like, I didn't play football in high school. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And these dudes, like everyone was scary to me, right? So it's like, what do? It's like, before you go to prison, you have somebody kick your ass, so you just get all ugly. It's like, go maul yourself up and get nasty looking. I remember being on the field once in Denver, and somebody's like, man, we ain't scared of you and your green tattoos. And I was like, they said, where are you from? And I was like, I said I was from Shreveport, Louisiana. I was like, I'm from the port. And I was like, I have no idea where it came from. I was like, I'm from the port. And he was like, oh man, he's from the port. He's like, leave him alone. I was like, I don't even know what Shreveport's like. I don't know if it's rough. I don't know what's going on out there. But I completely understand, because we're in a place where it really is a physical hierarchy, where there's an alpha and there's an order below that, and everybody understands that order. And it's very natural to understand that order in the locker room. And if you do show weakness, and if you do get vulnerable and you stand in front of the room and it's like, hey, here's where I'm from, and it's funny now because coaches would do this. They would urge this. I talked to a guy the other day who played for Lou Holtz at South Carolina, and he said Lou would make us stand in front of the room and share our stories because he knew that connecting was going to bring us closer together. And by bringing us closer together, we're going to care more, we're going to do more, we're going to work harder, and we're going to have a better team. So when I look back, it's like I understand why we did what we did because football was status quo, but new science would tell you it's like you should probably share your stories a little bit more and get to know one another and be vulnerable and open up. That way we can make these connections. It's like, damn, dude, I had no idea. And that's how I feel about your story. I had no idea.
Yeah, well, you know what, Nick, man, to be honest, like my son's 11. My son's 11 now. My dad wasn't around when I grew up. So you learn how to fend for yourself, right? Because you don't have adult male figure and stuff. Like, if one of my son's coaches or somebody around the neighborhood is, some parent or something give my son some shit, I'm like calling. I'm like, oh, hey, what's the deal, right? What you tell me what's going on? Well, why isn't my kid? So I had nobody there to really fend for me. So I've always had to do it myself, and through that you build up this callus of being a certain way, and you don't know that until you get out of it. And
that's
and,
right.
it makes it okay to realize that that's the deal. And my son is growing up in Monroe, New Jersey. It's just upper middle class, like nice neighborhood, and Danny DeVito. Yeah, Danny DeVito lives like a quarter mile down the street. He lives a nice life, and I'm happy for that because he's not going to have to ever put up a facade. He got somebody that always got him, no matter what. And I don't really regret that part of it. I think it actually made, because I got this funny theory, right? Look at anybody who is the top of the industry, and I don't care whether you're talking to Microsoft. Look at any big CEO or any owner, everybody's had something happen where they're a little bit different, right? Well, I don't care if it's childhood trauma. I don't care if it's something. And for a long time, I was like, man, I'm different. And I don't know why. I'm acting like this and I don't know why. And so, even now with the stuff that I'm doing, you got to have a lot of balls, man. I mean, to go out on your own and grow a league and do all this stuff. And I've done it from scratch, and I've built stuff from scratch, and you have to be a little bit off to get there, because a lot of people tell you like, hey man, put that money to the side. Don't go balls to the walls in this thing because you can lose it all. And I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it.
Cool.
Let's do it. So yeah. I am thankful because, though it might comes across to someone else crazy or being a certain way, I'm thankful that I'm crazy enough to do it, because a lot of people aren't crazy enough to do it. They play it safe and they're scared to take that next level or take that, that step off the ledge and say, hey man, whatever happens, but I'm doing it. So it did work out in my favor.
Yeah. And that's you. That's how you can come in and own the huddle as a rookie. That's how you can come in and change the dynamic of a locker room. You change the temperature of the place wherever you are. You're coming in and people are going, what's that dude doing? Cool. Yeah, it making noise, and it's in a good way. And the podcast is tremendous, and I love what you're doing with it. So great. All right, coming up on it here. When I heard the news, not kidding, like it floored me. Like I fell down to the ground and I wept when I heard that Vincent passed. And for people listening, that Vincent Jackson, when he passed a couple of months ago, it floored me. It dropped me to the ground, and I broke down like I was boo-hooing, and it was tragic, right? Like how, right? How did I don't even know if I've completely processed all of it. Like how have you dealt with it? How have you processed this?
Well, I found out about it. Somebody sent me a Twitter link.
That's how I got it too.
Yeah. And I didn't even really pay attention to it. It was a TMZ Twitter, right? Didn't pay attention to it. I looked at it and I get a bunch of texts or whatever. So I didn't open it. I'm like, got my headphones on and whatever. So I finally like sat down, almost done my workout between my sets, and I opened it. And I literally I looked at my phone, I looked at it closer, and I was like, yeah, right. So, no way, right? And
same thing.
Yep. I've had really close people to pass away, and I believed it right away. I was like, oh hell. but it just didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense. So I literally, I got up, I walked out the gym, and I called a few people. And then I talked to Arthur Hightower, right? Our head of player development, player development when we were there. And I said, yo, is this true? Is it real? He said, yeah, man. He had a very low tone voice and sounded like that, he was floored too. And you started to think, man, and just the conversation we just had right now, right? What the hell? Like if something else is going on and we never talked about anything, and like I said, man, we're forced to walk around with, the big chest, right? We're forced to walk around with all this stuff and not show, because in how we grew up and or the time and era and what we were doing is just, that wasn't a good thing. So I was floored, man. And I just could not believe it. And then the other little stuff started to come out. What was he doing in the hotel? Right. What was he like, all this? And I started I started to kind of put everything like two and two together. Like I still don't know all the details, but you start to put together enough where you're like, okay, all right, maybe this happened.
Right.
So yeah, man, just like you, it hurt me. It hurt bad. And it was something it was so off guard that I couldn't even process what had just happened.
Because from all accounts, and the last time I saw him and the last time I talked to him, which wasn't too long before that, everything was great. Like businesses were going super well. He's got a young kid, he's got an amazing wife, and everything seemed to be like he had the keys to Tampa Bay. He was basically like the assistant mayor. I mean, and then all of a sudden it's really hard to fathom. So tragic. Lights, I know you're a busy man. I appreciate this hour. I really appreciate it. It's funny, after all these years that we've known each other, I appreciated getting to know you.
No, same here, man. And like I always say this, sometimes we're the closest to people that we don't see and talk to as much, right? Mm-hmm. Some of my closest friends, we don't get a chance to see each other that often, and we don't talk a whole lot because we watch each other from a distance. We are like that hustle, that grind, there's always a connection there. So when I see you, and then what you're doing on the health tip and working out, man, like all that stuff. Even I've even taken some of the recipes, and I'm like following some of the programs, like, because I've always been a glutton for information. So somebody I can cut 5 pounds here in the mid. Okay, cool. I'm gonna start eating this or doing that. Yep. So just seeing it from a distance, man, has been cool, and get a chance to really talk to you guys and stay connected in a way. So I'm always here, dude. If you ever needed me, be there in 2 seconds.
Thank you, buddy. Hey, I appreciate this. I respect the hell out of you. I love you, man.
Love you too, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, Shawne. Bye-bye.
Okay, you got it.